live on Facebook. We're live here on Zoom, so we can begin. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Some people may be joining us a little bit later on, but there will be a recording that you'll get access to, so please feel free to share that with others. So I just want to take some time to introduce myself, my guests, and talk a little bit about what Tackle Tuesdays is all about. So welcome to Tackle Tuesdays. It's a webcast series that explores and examines different topics and issues in organizational behavior. And I started Tackle Tuesdays because I wanted to create a space and a forum where we could talk about issues and things that organizations tackle with on a regular basis. And so through Tackle Tuesdays, from week to week, we're going to explore issues like organizational behavior, leadership, emotional intelligence, and how to lead through COVID-19. And so my name is Joanna Pagonis. I am the owner of Sinogap Solutions, a leadership consulting firm. And what we do there is we actually partner with organizations in developing employee and leadership development programs that contribute to an organization's ability to continually grow and achieve its mission. So this is our inaugural webcast, the first in our series, and I thought we should focus it on the grand reopening of businesses as Canada is passing through the first phase of the COVID-19 response. And that's why the title of today's episode is the grand reopening, returning to a new normal. So my guest today has unique perspectives on this topic. I'm excited to engage her in a conversation that will provide organizations some sound and sage advice for employers on what they can do as they begin to open and as they are required to be agile and nimble as they shift back to physical workplaces. So I'd like to welcome Kira Berntson, who is a safety professional with degrees in engineering and psychology. She has worked in design and safety in a variety of industries, including theater, manufacturing, utilities, oil, and gas. So in the course of her career, she's worked in both industry and regulatory sides of the fence, including private consulting. Currently, she's working for WorkSafeBC, where she's the co-manager of prevention field services in the Okanagan-Kootenay region of BC, which is absolutely beautiful if you've had the luxury and the privilege of going there. Her passion is helping workplaces ensure that all workers are protected from physical and psychological injuries. And when she is not working, she likes to spend time with her cats, working out in her living room, and other activities which allow for appropriate physical distancing. So thank you so much, Kira, for joining us today on the inaugural episode of our Tackle Tuesdays. How are you doing today?
I'm great. And thanks so much, Jonna, for inviting me to join you. I'm really actually honored to be part of your inaugural episode. That's very cool.
You're very welcome. Well, thank you. I know you're really busy. We talked a little briefly before we had you on today, and you talked about how, you're really busy helping organizations prepare for reopening. So I'm really curious, and I think our viewers will be curious to know, like, what are some of the things that they're contacting you about? What's keeping them up at night? What's freaking them out? So what are some of the questions that you're getting from businesses that are connecting with you?
Well, it's a pretty big variety, actually, because WorkSafe's role is very much, we're closely linked with the public health officer in BC. So we are getting a lot of questions around things like, well, am I even allowed to open? When will I be allowed to open? And those sorts of things, which aren't really something we can answer, but we do try to at least let them know who can answer those questions. But then we're also getting a lot of questions about things like, is it safe to reopen? What are the risks if I reopen? How do I use masks and gloves and personal protective equipment and things like that? For those questions, we have to talk to them a lot about, well, PPE is actually kind of the last thing you're going to want to look at. You want to start with, your physical distancing, your hygiene, and then go into your elimination, your hierarchy of controls. So can you do the task at a time when someone's not there? Get into your engineering controls like the plexiglass shields, your admin controls, and PPE it's the most fallible. So it's kind of the last one you want to start thinking about, but they are still things you want to think about, right? We've got workers and employers who aren't really sure how to follow the rules and how to follow the guidelines and what is a rule, what is a guideline. So try and tell them, these are PHO orders that you have to follow. These are the guidelines that you want to assess in terms of what actually works for your workplace, because not everything is going to fit even every restaurant, let alone every a restaurant and a gym are then going to have totally different things that they need to do as well.
Right.
So,
You mentioned an acronym. Sorry, you mentioned an acronym.
Right.
I'm not good with the acronyms. What did you say?
Oh, PPE.
Use that one, and there was another one. But yeah, I think everybody probably knows what PPE is, but just go ahead. And there was another acronym that you used as well.
Public health officer. I'm sorry about that. PHO is the public health officer. Yeah, horrible habit of engineers. We love to throw out acronyms constantly.
I worked for government. That's how we spoke, was acronyms only. So I totally get it. Okay, so what kind of businesses are contacting you? So you mentioned restaurants and gyms. Are there other workplaces too?
Oh yeah, right across the board. Daycare centers, schools, healthcare offices, like the non-essential healthcare officers that are reopening, the chiropractors, the dentists. Dentists are actually really struggling because, of course, they're right in your mouth. So that's really hard it's really difficult for them with barriers and figuring out ways to protect their staff.
Right.
A friend of mine was telling me they went to the dentist and their hygienist looked like she was going into a biohazard situation with all the people.
And so you were saying sometimes like that level of intervention isn't necessarily required. So how do they determine, like, yes, when do they need PPE, when maybe they don't? That's like a last resort.
Mm-hmm. So, with things where you can't actually maintain the social distancing, you can't put barriers up, there you're definitely going to need the PPE. So the dental office is a really great example of a place you definitely need PPE there, or a massage therapist where you actually have to be in physical contact with the person. You're going to need some PPE. On the other hand, if you're in a grocery store but you're able to put the plexiglass up or step back from the till, I'm sorry, I'm talking with my hands and you can't even see them.
I can see them. Perfect. No worries. I talk with my hands too.
But in those sort of situations, you wouldn't necessarily need the PPE. You might wear a mask to, reassure your customers that you're not breathing on them, or you might ask them to wear ask your customers to wear masks as that extra level of protection. But even there with PPE, you want to be careful because for some people, a mask is just not possible. Either they have respiratory issues or claustrophobia or something. So you've got to or gloves might actually create more of a problem by spreading contamination than by protecting the person who's using it. So those are things you got to consider as well when you're getting down to the PPE level.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I think I've gotten off onto a different question than you originally.
No, this is good. I kind of interrupted you and took you off track there a little bit. But yeah, continue with some of the things that they're contacting you about.
Well, we get a lot of questions from both workers and employers saying, what do I need to do? Am I following these guidelines correctly? We get a lot of, actually, for the first time ever, we have a lot of people calling us saying, can your officers come out and look at what we're doing, as opposed to stay away and please don't visit me, which is great. So it's a really, as much as I hate to look at COVID as an opportunity in some ways, it's a great opportunity for us to educate people about health and safety generally, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. We're getting a lot of questions around, my workers are afraid to come back, or my workers, how do I support them when they're coming back? They've been at home. Or, well, some of my workers are coming back, but my accountant can work from home, so we're going to keep them home, but now they feel isolated and left out. So there's a lot of emotional questions coming in as well that we're having to help people with, which, again, it's great that they're reaching out to us on both the physical and the psychological front.
Do you find that sometimes when people think of OH&S, they're focused more on the physical front and less on the psychological aspect of it?
Before we hit COVID, I think the biggest issue wasn't even the physical, it was like the immediate safety hit. And, falling off a ladder, breaking your leg was really where the focus was, as opposed to even the diseases and the psychological. But the people are now more and more starting to understand the hygiene hazards, the longer term things like exposures or illnesses, and the psychological impacts. We're getting a whole lot of questions around things that I don't think a lot of employers have ever really understood how to deal with before, but now they're recognizing, we have to, and we need to support our people.
Yeah, that is encouraging to hear that. What are some of the, opportunities and challenges that come with that? Because you said there's some newfound opportunities that do come with that. Can you speak to that a bit more?
Well, obviously, it's a great opportunity to be able to just right at the start, okay, so now you're risk assessing what are your risks of COVID exposure and developing a plan for that. But this is the same technique that you use, assess the risks, put the barriers or the fixes in place or eliminate the risks, reassess and see if it's actually working for you, and adapt as you get feedback from your workers. exact same thing you do for guarding hazards, exact same thing you would do for chemical hazards, anything. So it's really great because we do in BC and probably right across Canada, but in BC, the vast majority of our employers are what we consider small to micro. They're focused on just keeping their business afloat. So to give them have the opportunity to teach them these basic tools that are really going to help them is great.
Oh, that is wonderful. I know I'm going to be speaking with someone next week, Chris Bassoff. We're going to talk about the emotional intelligence and kind of like that's how the missing ingredient on OH&S sometimes, and that it's not only physical, it's the emotional too. And I've been encountering that as well, that people seem to be employees concerned about their own health and safety and ensuring that their employers are thinking about them through that time and providing them that support that they will be safe if they come back.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably quite logical, but it's actually interesting because our marketing team went out and did a big survey to try to figure out what were some things that we could do to support businesses reopening and workers coming back. And one of the interesting takeaways that they were telling me about is a lot of the workers who are coming back are really, really stressed, but the workers who've been out there the whole time in the middle of this, they've developed that emotional resiliency and the skills and the understanding of the risks that they're actually pretty not stressed. Which, you'd think they'd be starting to get some burnout from all the constant changes, but they're in a pretty good place, a lot of them.
Right. Do you think that will happen with people as they go back to, it's just the unknown, the fear of the unknown?
Well, I think for a lot of people it will, as they get used to it, as they start to understand what the new rules are, and as they get used to even the fact that the rules are going to keep changing for a while. Even for us at WorkSafe, everyone's like, well, you must know what's happening. You're close to the government. It's like, they let us know when they can, but they're monitoring on a day-to-day basis here.
Yeah.
So, it's tricky, but yeah, change is always scary. And I think it was scary for people when they went home, and now it's scary to come back. And, there's the security that we thought we had for so long has really been pretty shattered.
Yeah, for quite a while, right? It's all this unknown, it's this uncertainty. I heard somebody say, and I loved what he said. He said, risk is not the same thing as uncertainty, because uncertainty, you can, to some extent, plan for it and mitigate some of the risks if you can anticipate what they are. But uncertainty, you don't always know where the risks are. So it's hard to mitigate something that you're unaware of that may occur. So as we're speaking now about these challenges, what do you think some other challenges are that organizations, companies, small businesses may be faced with?
Well, again, a lot of them don't have a lot of experience with putting these health and safety plans in place. They're small. They haven't been required to have formal plans before. So that's a real learning curve for a lot of businesses. And they have limited budgets frequently, and their budgets have been hit because they've been shut down. So getting really creative with how are we going to do these things? Supplies are a huge challenge. Where do I get the plexiglass? Where do I get the masks? The local stores don't necessarily have it. And one thing I would suggest there, if you have anyone in that position, is reach out to, say, your chambers of commerce or your business associations, see if you can get a group buy from somewhere going on. Look for those kind of solutions. They are really all willing to help you there. A lot of people are struggling with balancing COVID risks against other risks, or struggling with perceptions as well. We have people who, as I say, they're really scared. They want to wear the mask and the face shield and the gloves, and it's like, okay, if you wear that on this job, you're actually going to hurt yourself physically. You can't. It's not going to work. We have to do other things, and trying to have that really open conversation about this is what we've assessed and how we've come to these conclusions so that people can understand what's happening. Huge challenges sometimes with workers returning. A lot of them maybe still have their kids at home, or they have a person who's an at-risk person, someone with a compromised immune system or a senior parent they're caring for, and they don't want to be back in the workplace. Assessing, can you make an accommodation, have them work from home, or is that feasible? How do you handle that? Do you have to hire new people now and train new people with all this stuff going on? We've seen a lot of job ads, actually, a huge amount of job ads. I was surprised how many of businesses were reopening around Kelowna, because there's people who just are not able to come back right now or are really afraid to. So that's a huge challenge for businesses.
Yeah.
And actually, I think one of the saddest challenges to me is, like they say that you're never going to please all of the people all the time. You're not chocolate or whatever the saying is, but there's people who on one end are like, why aren't you giving me these services? Why aren't you opening? Why aren't you? And then on the other end, you've got people from the public who are, why are you open? Why aren't you doing more? I don't like the way you're doing this. And sometimes people on both ends of that spectrum are actually getting quite aggressive with the businesses, which creates a whole new risk that they now have to figure out how to address. And that's a huge challenge for people who, we've always been in these small communities and neighbors and friends, and now this guy's yelling at me and I don't want to call the cops on him, but maybe I have to protect my workers. Again, so business owners and leaders, while they're trying to support their people, are also struggling sometimes with their own mental health challenges there, and the number one thing I would say there is, do make sure you're reaching out and getting some support and taking care of yourself. And yes, you are a leader, but don't be afraid to look to your team now and then for a bit of support when you need it, because they will try to do that for you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I was doing a webinar not too long ago on resiliency and agility. And one of the things for CEOs, presidents, directors, leaders, business owners, one of the things that I said to them is, when you step up to the plate to be that leader, you take on more responsibility than other people would. Naturally, you decided to take on that job, and it's not an easy job. But you have to be careful that you're paying attention to your own mental health, and you're paying attention to what your emotional triggers are, and that you're reaching out and asking for support and help when you need to, that you don't have to have all the answers, right?
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing you say is that as a business owner, as a leader, brainstorm, connect with your team, figure out how to get through as new risks are emerging, things you didn't anticipate, bring them into the conversation to figure out how best to be agile and deal with those situations as they arise, or if they arise again, correct?
Absolutely, 100%. Your team, generally, they want to be involved in the direction of their own health and safety. That's going to help you guys come up with better ideas as a team as a whole. And it's also going to help them feel empowered and safer and more a part of the workplace. So it's, yes, 100%.
Absolutely. And I was thinking about too, and I wanted to ask you about that, and you answered it. I was going to say, how are customers and consumers approaching businesses as they reopen? So you talked a little bit about how some consumers are on either one end, where they're like angry or upset that businesses aren't opening, but on the other end, they're frustrated that they are opening. What other things are you hearing about that?
Well, those are the unfortunate extremes. And actually most customers and most people who are getting out there are, they're very understanding. They're very compassionate. What we're seeing and what I'm hearing from, friends I know who have businesses and people who are talking to us is, most customers are actually understanding and, there's not enough capacity right now. That's okay. We'll come back another night, and leaving the larger tips because they know these people have been out of work for a while and things like that. So yeah, by and large, most customers are trying to follow the rules. They understand that we need to help these people, stay open. If we're not following these rules and we see a huge spike, things are going to close again. It's not a good thing. So definitely most people are trying to do this and trying to help support the reopening. Of course, you do get those outliers who again, don't believe in COVID, don't want to follow the rules, don't worry about social distancing. But again, those are outliers, and hopefully enough people are doing the right thing that we can keep everything open.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Marcia just left us a comment that I'm going to read because I'm not sure if you can see it, but she said definitely there are concerns or fears from employees that the appropriate protocols are actually in place and followed at the workplace. This will breed lack of trust and credibility of the employer. With this fear and risk and employees' ability to work effectively from home, employers are going to be challenged by employees to stay home in order to reduce this risk, because there is definitely risk.
Mm-hmm.
But this could also be based in fear as well.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why the education, the training, these are the protocols we've put in place. This is why we maybe haven't done this guideline or this protocol. This is the rationale. Helping them understand, giving them input is so very important, both in terms of maintaining the health and safety, but also in terms of encouraging them that yes, nothing is 100% risk-free, but we have taken all the steps to keep you as safe as we can when you come back, right?
Absolutely. And one of the things also that I'm trying to tell leaders is sometimes what they've actually expressed to me is they're afraid to open the door to have the conversation, to say, okay, these are some of the protocols we're going to put in place. What are your thoughts on that? How do you feel about that? Do you feel safe? to come back, why or why not. They've actually expressed concern or fear of opening up that conversation because they're afraid that they may be challenged. And what I'm trying to tell them is it's okay to be challenged. You want to welcome that. They may have insight to something that you're not aware of because you're not on on the front line, right? You don't necessarily have that one-on-one time in that operational world as some of your other employees may do. So they may have some valid concerns, but you'll never know unless you create that space. And if they don't have a valid concern, like Marcia was saying, because it's based solely in fear, not a lot of fact, it provides you an opportunity to clarify misconceptions. So having that open dialogue is absolutely critical during uncertainty. You need to communicate more than less. And also with your customers too, because they're also maybe experiencing that on their end, like you were saying as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that's required in pretty much all jurisdictions is, you know, the regular safety meetings and the occupational health and safety committees or the worker safety reps to make sure that that open communication is happening. And some people were saying, well, we can't get together now. It's like, then do it a different way, do it over the phone, spread out. But these are so important now to keep that communication flowing so that you know about the risks before they hit you. So that you know about, oh, this is a problem we're experiencing, this, you know, this plexiglass isn't working, we have to go around it all the time, and, you know, very important.
Yeah, because that's nimble is being open to saying, hey, we tried something, it's not working out that well, so let's figure out how to make it better. And I assume, like, right before we actually went live, we were talking a little bit about the different phases. And one of the questions I had for you was, well, does each phase look the same in each province, in each city? And you're saying no, it's a bit different. But I'm kind of curious to know, like, with each phase, what do you perceive that maybe, like, what are some things that businesses, employers need to be thinking about as they begin to reopen and as we progress through each phase?
Well, certainly you need to be thinking about, issues. COVID is hugely important, and thinking about, you know, how are you protecting your workers from that, but also thinking beyond that. So were there previously existing risks that you maybe still need to address or consider in the light of COVID? Because the slips and trips are still going to happen. If the floors got slippery, they're still going to get slippery. You know, are the machines properly guarded? And then there's also new risks. For example, one of the information sheets that we have that we send out to employers from WorkSafe is actually about Legionnaire's disease and its connection to standing water, because these places have been shut down for a couple of months now. Maybe they have a standing water system and they're going to get something into the air conditioning that's going to cause a whole other disease. So what are the steps you need to take? What do you need to think about? We're now cleaning and sanitizing so much more. Do you have people who maybe have allergies or sensitivities to these products, and how are you going to accommodate them?
God, I never even thought of that.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. You know, reduce numbers of people working because it's short hours or whatever. Do you now have people working alone or in isolation who weren't before, who are now exposed to new risks because of that? People who, again, the people we talked about before, who are either upset about how much or how little you're opening, are they the violence and harassment risk? Is that something you need to consider? And how you're going to protect your staff should that come, or how you're going to empower your staff to say, you know what, I need to call my manager and let them talk to you about this because I can't talk to you, and at least, you know, give them those protocols. And of course, you have to think about, as you're implementing this, is it working? I can't stress that enough. Is this working? Is it going, you know, do we need to do something different? Not everything is going to fit every business, and you can follow the guidelines perfectly from your occupational health and safety regulator or from your business association that you belong to or whatever, and it just doesn't fit the way your business is laid out, your physical layout or whatever. So again, you need to keep, as you say, keep interacting, keep talking to your staff and your team, keep listening to them, keep trying to understand what's going on so that you can stay nimble and keep on top of these issues.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely. And I hope businesses will do that. I feel like that's where I see sometimes leadership falling short a little bit. And it's the same conversation we were just having earlier around, don't feel like you have to have all of the solutions. Don't feel like if you put something forward, it doesn't work, that's it. You know, keep going with a solution that doesn't work. But really, people have to be very resilient and agile at this point as we go through each phase. It's going to be interesting, to see what's going to happen from now until the end of the year. It's like, I'm trying to be optimistic and see this as you know what, hopefully we'll never go through anything like this again. And if we do, we'll be more prepared for it. But I want to approach things with a sense of curiosity and in a way to see it as an opportunity to learn and how to come together as human beings to support one another. You know, the summer's around the corner. You're in a very high tourist area, right? We live in Alberta, and I live in Alberta, and just you know, hours away from the mountains. They're talking about the tourist industry there and how we're going to survive through this and ensure that we can be successful at the end of this, but just coming together as clients, as people, as employees and employers to help and support each other as we go through this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, you know, you've got to get fairly creative. We also have a very vibrant theater district in town here in Kelowna. And so they're looking at all kinds of creative ways because, of course, having 100 people in a live theater is just not going to be a thing for a while. And supporting live theater with smaller audiences isn't necessarily easy. So they're looking at things, you know, like, hey, can we maybe do this online, or, you know, partly live audience, a few live audience and online to keep it exciting, or, you know, different ways, or, you know, can we shift some of our business to, again, a more non-contact online kind of things for stores too, or virtual tours online and things like that. So
rethinking business and the way we serve our clients.
It's not really my area of expertise, but I know there's a lot of people thinking about all kinds of creative things to do there.
Absolutely. Once again, a great time to bring your employees into the conversation, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, they'll have great ideas, I'm sure.
So to sum up, because we're getting close to the end of the 30 minutes, I mean, some of the key takeaways that I got from this, and correct me if I'm wrong, and then please add if there's anything else. But number one is, referring to your province's guidelines and making sure that they are a guideline. It doesn't mean that it may not always be appropriate for your business and the services that you provide, but definitely to access those. To tap into your Chamber of Commerce, especially if you need access to equipment or things like that can help maintain physical distancing or keeping your employees and your customers safe. Bringing your employees into the conversation to figure out how to be agile, nimble, and be creative to ensure that people are safe, feeling safe, and ensuring that customers are getting the services that they need, but being safe as well. Anything else that you want to add?
I think you hit a lot of it. Again, the biggest thing is just, again, acknowledging what's not working, acknowledging what's working, keeping the lines of conversation open, and of course, keeping the hierarchy of controls there, which is, you know, the physical distancing and the hygiene first, which is not normally the hierarchy of controls, but it really is the most important thing for this particular situation. Then the elimination, you know, get rid of the contact, leave the parcel at the door on the table as opposed to actually handing it over. You know, go down there and just really, again, taking care of each other and supporting each other as best we can.
Perfect. Go ahead.
Nope, please.
I was going to say, we have one more comment that came in, and it says from Lillian, so thank you, Lillian. Some of our elementary middle schools open on Monday after schools were given guidelines and time to set up their protocols. One local school had prepared a video for its students to study prior to returning. It showed a lot of thought and care in bringing students into a safe environment. And news reports last evening said that returning students were fewer than expected. Do you have any suggestions for school administrators as to how they can improve the confidence of parents as children will be relatively safe? I know we're at the 10:30 mark, but please, if you can answer that question, we can always go a little bit longer as well.
Well, again, the biggest thing is always going to be the open and honest communication, the willingness to answer their questions. So if you can even maybe set up, you know, a hotline or an email where they can email or call their concerns to, so that you can say, yeah, I've heard you and this is how we're addressing this. That's going to be a huge part of it. The video is a great idea. That's awesome as far as being proactive, but be willing to listen and understand and hear their concerns. And, you know, they might bring up some really valid questions or some really great ideas that are going to help you take it even farther. So that would be, communication is always my number one suggestion.
I think the theme for today is, when in doubt, reach out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's cheesy, but you know what? It's true. When in doubt, reach out. Reach out to the people you work with, reach out to your customers, reach out to the resources in your community, and you're not alone, right? And they can read. So actually, I was going to say, what are some resources that they can access? You actually sent me some of those resources. I'm going to just post it in the comment box, but as I post it in the comment box for all to see. Can you talk a little bit as to what people can find in that resource?
Well, there are, in every region, there are, of course, health and safety regulators, and each one is a little bit different, but most of them do have resources, or at least a line you can call and ask questions. And you can also always go to www.worksafebc.com. Anything about regulations will be fairly specific to BC, but we do have a lot of videos and pamphlets and info guides that are very general. They're more about assessing the health and safety risks than the regulations across all kinds of topics. And they're actually relatively easy to find. You just click on health and safety and there's an alphabetical list. If you want COVID advice, right at the top, of course, is, as every website pretty much nowadays, there's a COVID information banner that has all kinds of tools for, how do you actually do a risk assessment around COVID, and what are some posters to put up to help around things like how to use a mask, how to hand wash. Lots of really great resources. But the biggest thing is any of your health and safety regulators, you call the one for your jurisdiction, ask them questions. They are there to help you.
I was going to say, are they as wonderful as you are?
Anyone I've ever talked to has been amazing.
Okay, good. I'm going to move to BC just so I can have you help me and you have your team help me. Oh, well, thank you so much thank you for volunteering to be my first guest. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I learned a lot from you today. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to do Tackle Tuesdays. It wasn't only to support others, but it was an opportunity for me to learn too. So I really do appreciate you meeting with me. I know how busy you are. You're helping so many people through this crazy time. So thank you so much. I wish you the best of luck as you continue to go through this, and good work. And thank you so much for helping everybody. And hopefully we'll be able to come to Kelowna one day soon, and then we can actually have a beer or a glass of wine together.
Oh, that would be amazing. Thank you, because I always do learn so much when I interact with you too. So it's really great to have this opportunity, and I hope we get to do stuff together more often.
Too. Thank you so much. Well, thank you for everyone for joining. The recording will be available. All you need to do is just go to my website at sinogapsolutions.com, search for Tackle Tuesdays, or you can just go to that link that I put in there. You can access the resources, and by the end of the day, I'll also have a link to the recording where you can access it. And please feel free to share it out to others and encourage others to either attend through Facebook Live on my Facebook page, Sinogap Solutions, or to just register through Zoom, or send me an email and I can send the link out to anybody. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kira. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you all next week. Oh, and I should mention, next week I'm going to have Chris Bassoff on. He is the owner of F2 Legal. He is a OH&S lawyer, and he's going to talk about emotional intelligence, the missing ingredient in our OH&S system. So I think today was a good start to that conversation, and we'll go into that in a bit more depth next week. So thank you all, and have a great rest of the week. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye, Kira.
Thanks. Stay safe.
You too.